Welcome back to Revamp, guys, and welcome back to sort of like a catch-up video or final video, I suppose, on the ZL Fairlane fuel system repairs. Now, as the title may suggest, yes, we did lose a heap of footage for this, and that's why it sort of like hasn't come out. If you haven't seen the first two videos, I'll put a link up here in the corner. Check those out where you sort of see the problems that we were having and how we sort of diagnosed it. And in this video, we'll be implementing the solutions that we've decided to do for it. Now, like I've said in the other videos, this car is it's a cheap cruiser for a mate's family. And, you know, he didn't want to spend a lot of money. He'd been basically, no, I wouldn't say ripped off, but, you know, a lot of other shops had changed things that were not necessary. He'd changed fuel pumps himself multiple times at a very high price. So, yeah, just trying to get him and his family back on the road, out there cruising, you know, good family time in a classic car. So that's what this car's all about. So we'll get into what we sort of decided on doing for the fuel system and how we put it all back together. All right, guys, I thought before put all the fuel sender or fuel pump module back together and get ready to put it back in the ZL, I thought I would just sort of run through the things that we've done to it or what we're going to do to it, things that we could fix and we couldn't fix, and yeah, some of the extra parts that we got. So yeah, so starting off with the main body. You remember it had the corrosion mostly on the bottom, but you could see it all up under here as well. Under here. What we actually did here is I got Jimmy and the boys to blast and powder coat it. Now, we did a little research to start with just to see if powder coat was going to be compatible for, you know, being submersed in fuel. We actually did a little test piece here. That's the bracket goes on there. So we did that as a test piece. And we've actually used a slightly different type of powder coat. I believe it's a epoxy powder, I think. That's what they call it anyway. Yeah, and you can see it's come up quite nicely. And we tested this small bracket and yeah, it didn't go soft in fuel overnight, didn't go slimy or sticky or anything like that. So, yeah, that epoxy powder, that's the one you want to use if you put it inside a tank. So we've done that. Now our little filter's up the back here. Obviously not needing that one. We're not going to need that one. Our little like sort of swirl pot can, we're going to be cleaning that one out. Now, as we did the test on the powder for being submersible in fuel, pretty much the same reasoning as to why you have submersible fuel hose. So you can see they do make specific in-tank fuel hose, only comes in a short length like that. And that will stop it from swelling and splitting apart like that piece did. I did actually have one part supplier say that their everyday fuel hose is rated for in-tank as well, but I kind of feel that they make a specific in-tank hose for a reason, so we went with the specific in-tank. Now, one of the things we're going to try and fix in this car was this sender unit, fuel level sender unit, that wasn't working. Now, after talking to an instrument company that I've used for about the last 20 years, and are quite, you know, they don't shy away from an unusual instrument job, they said you can't buy them anymore. The only real repair they can do to them is clean them. And, it was going to be a time-consuming, delicate clean job that may not fix the sender unit anyway. So we made the decision to just clean the outer of the body up. So I lightly sandblasted that just with a small sandblasting gun, and you can see that it is galvanized. When it came to getting another fuel pump, the owner had already replaced this one at what he said was about $400 for the fuel pump kit. Now, I basically confirmed that price, and I thought that's a bit pricey for the fuel requirements of the 4.1 EFI engine. So I started looking into some cheaper alternatives, in-tank fuel pumps out of later model cars that would have made more power, possibly even run at a higher fuel pressure. So we've got just an aftermarket in-tank fuel pump. Comes with its wiring, comes with its little filter bag that goes on the bottom. The one we ended up going with was out of either a 3.8 litre V6 Commodore or like a 3.8 litre or 3.5 litre Mitsubishi V6. Designed for a much more modern car and engines that made much more power than this Ford 6-cylinder actually did. So we looked up the flow specs and stuff, and reasonably about the same as the old pump, and around about half the price, or actually a bit under half the price. So considering we're getting rid of this old filter basket and we're sort of making things fit the unit ourselves, we've got to change a few things around. So we don't need a specific shape pump. We just need the pump to have the right fuel flow requirements, and that's pretty much it. So at half the price, we're saving the owner a little bit of money because, as I said in the last video, this is a bit of a budget family classic cruiser. So we are trying to keep the cost down on, any EFI system fix can be an expensive fix. That'll be basically the setup that we're going to go with. That pump sitting on the bottom of that little anti-surge pot. And we just need to join, obviously, the fuel pressure going out towards the engine and the return coming back from the engine. Now, if you remember, the other problem that we found inside the tank was the electrical connections for the earth. So it used to have this corroded push-on barb fitting that just went there on the housing, and then that connected to the motor. So with the new plug and harness that came with the new fuel pump, we're going to get the earth wire. Just put an I terminal instead of a female blade, and we'll drill a hole in the housing here somewhere so that it gets a good proper earth onto the metal body. All right, so this is what we end up with. So we've got all our new submersible fuel hose here. Fuel pump with this little sock down in there. We put a hose clamp that goes around the pump, and then around the total body, just so we don't get any distortion out of this old sender unit and everything. We've actually just wedged a little bit of rubber in underneath it to support it. So you can see this is the sender unit here. It takes up quite a large area of the top of it. The power comes through on this sort of bulkhead style post. You can see just here where we've put our little bolt on earth instead of the blade connection. We use a little stainless steel nut and bolt there. And don't forget, whenever you're putting an earth on a coated surface, whether that be paint or powder coat or whatever, always just take a tiny bit of that coating off where the connection is going to mate up against the surface. This is ready to put back in the fuel tank of the ZL. I'll get back around there, and remembering we did leave it outside while we're sourcing parts and figuring out what we're going to do. So it is a little weather dependent, but as soon as I get a nice bit of weather, I'll get around there, get it in the tank. We'll test drive it again and see how we go. All right, we're back at the car now. She's been sitting here for the last week or so. And we just want to make sure that the edge is clean around here. Obviously our O-rings in location there. And with a few little changes that we've made, we want to make sure it still fits in there properly. So yeah, we're going to give it a test fit and see how she fits. I'm just putting it back in fairly similar to the way I pulled it out, and basically where it feels like it fits best in the tank. I'm probably just going to go with that since we've modified everything inside. All right, now there is a proper tool for this, but I don't have it. So I like to get something a bit blunt and just try to get it in there and gently tap it around. All right, well, that's ready for a test try. Let's prime it up, see if it primes up. You can actually see on prime, we've got more fuel pressure than we ever actually were able to run the car at without clamping the return line. So straight away, I think we're probably looking good. All right, so you got to remember that this is cold start. We've got about the same fuel pressure that we had on previous cold starts. You know, that's regulated by the regulator, so we don't have any sort of line clamp on there. So, you know, I think it's going to come more down to can the fuel pump keep up with what's going on with the fuel supply. We clearly had a fuel supply issue before. Check back here for leaks again. Looking pretty good if you ask me. What I do is I'll go for a drive, I'll leave that cover off so that I can check for any leaks. But yeah, pretty happy with that so far. Alright, so now we know our fuel pressure's behaving. I've just gone and popped a fuel filter down where I had that fuel gauge. And look, that might be temporary, we might leave it there. We've just got a cable tied to a couple of hoses at the moment. If it's temporary, we might look at a bracket for it to mount it properly. But yeah, that's just to stop any debris that might be in the fuel lines from the back of the car to the front of the car. So the last job on the Fairlane is the two relays here, one for the injectors, one for the fuel pump. Now I found that one of them had a bit of a distorted plug that you saw just before. So we're going to swap them out, mostly just to make sure, you know, we're really looking at keeping this thing reliable. So we're just going to swap them out with some Bosch style relays, very similar to this one here. All right, there we go. Just a couple of Bosch style relays. I'm sure somebody out there is going to tell me that, you know, you must use the original Ford item, blah 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 blah, which is fine, as far as I could tell and as far as anybody told me, the standard Bosch style relay will do the job fine. So that's what's easily available, and so that's what we've run with at the moment. All right guys, there we go. We've got the ZL Fairlane running really nicely now, and I'm pretty confident that he can cruise it with his family and it be reliable for him. There's a couple of things still. Does have a leaking exhaust system from sitting in a paddock for ages. That's something we'll do down the track. But right now it's running really well, really happy with it. The owner's really happy with it, and it just goes to show that sometimes it's not just one item that can cause an issue. Like, we had those blocked injectors, we had rust in the fuel rail, it had bad varnish, stale fuel in at one stage. Then we had all the corrosion on the fuel bracket in the fuel tank. So those combined with then possibly some bad connections at the relays at the front here as well, just creating high resistance in the system. So it goes to show that those small things can all add up together to consistently make pretty much a problem that the car was almost undrivable. So this is another one off the list. If you want to see more of these, subscribe to the channel, drop us a like, leave a comment, and I'll catch up with you next time on Next Gen Revamp.